Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Tina Jha. The United States has proposed retaliatory trade action against India and certain other countries that have imposed or are considering digital services tax on e-commerce companies. The United States Trade Representative, that's the USTR, has proposed to impose retaliatory tariffs up to 25% on a wide variety of Indian products, ranging from shrimps and basmati rice to gold and silver items, on grounds that India's digital services tax, also known as equalization levy or the Google tax, is unreasonable or discriminatory and burdens US trade. Now, as per the USTR report, initial estimates indicate that the value of the digital services tax payable by US-based company groups to India will be up to approximately $55 million per year, indicating that the retaliatory tariffs could add up to this amount. Similar action has been proposed against several other countries like Turkey, Italy, the United Kingdom, Austria, and also Spain. It's being reported that the government of India will examine the proposed action with all stakeholders concerned and would take suitable measures, keeping in mind the trade and commercial interests of the country and its people. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will try and understand all about India's digital services tax. Why does the United States find it discriminatory and unreasonable? And we'll also try and understand from experts the possible ways to resolve this issue. Joining me on the program are two distinguished panelists. Let me first introduce them to you. I'm joined on The Big Picture today by Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey, former Special Secretary and Financial Advisor, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, and Mr. Sunil Garg, he's a tax expert. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on The Big Picture today. Mr. Garg, let me begin the program today with you. So let's first try and understand India's digital services tax. When was it enacted? What is its objective? And what is the threshold for this levy?
Tina, see, this is a very contentious issue, and this is roaming the world around. Actually, what happens in the Indian taxation system, we have the system where we are taxing the companies either on the residence basis or the source-based taxation. This was the basically system of the taxation in India. But to tax a non-resident, there has to be a permanent establishment in India. If we don't have a permanent establishment, we cannot tax the business income of that establishment, like Google, Facebook, or so many companies who are doing the business through the digital economy. And you see what happens in case of the digital companies, they don't have any permanent base in any country. And that's why they are now immune to the taxation system of every country. Now, what happened? We brought a definition of significant economic presence in the definition of Section 9 of as a business connection. But that was not operative because the rules cannot be framed. And because of the reason, whenever a non-resident is taxed, we have to see which provision is beneficial, whether DTA is beneficial or Indian taxation system is beneficial. As the DTA does not provide the specific economic presence rule, and you have to stick to the permanent establishment again. That was the problem. Why we couldn't tax those companies? Now, what happened? There is a project base erosion and profit shifting by OECD. OECD has 15 action plan for taxing this company, these kind of the nuisances which were happening in the cross-border transactions. They suggested in the action plan 1 about the equalization levy. We can have a unilateral act because because the countries were not accepting this, and especially the USA, as you mentioned in your opening remark. Now, what happened in Finance Act 2016, we brought a equalization levy at the rate of 6% for a smaller portion, for only advertisement portion of those companies. But this Finance Act 2020, we brought equalization levy at the rate of 2% on the digital economy, on the digital companies or the digital economy they are providing services to India. This Finance Act has 21 has also made certain changes. Well, it has been clarified now. Only those services or those sale of goods or provision of goods will be covered, which are being done in India only. Now, the problem is that so many other countries are leaving this. France, Italy, Turkey, so many countries now, they're following the OECD BEPS action plan. But what USA says that it's a discriminatory provision because it taxes USA companies, but not the Indian companies. But this is a half truth because the Indian companies are already paying the tax on the business profit in India. They are resident. Now, where is the question? Where the question of discrimination arises? And our viewpoint is that when when they objected, then we replied that this is not a discriminatory tax because this is applicable throughout the board. Whether the company belongs to USA or to France or to Germany, we are charging it. Now, there are issues in this taxation, but certainly the whole world has to evolve a formula to tax the digital economy tax.
Absolutely. Let me take that view to Dr. Pandey. So, Dr. Pandey, this applies to all companies, all e-com operators across the globe who are having their businesses in India. And also the threshold for the equalization levy is quite moderate, as Mr. Garg pointed out. So why does the United States find it unreasonable and discriminatory against them?
Tina, that is because most of the big tech companies are housed in USA. It is a much larger struggle of state against non-resident big tech. It's in the international arena. It is not really, you mentioned about USTR report and the Indian action. It is not really a US versus India issue. It is a government of the different countries versus non-resident big tech. Before going into technical details to supplement with what Mr. Garg says, I would like to give a very easy to understand analogy for our viewers, is that if there are two ways in which you can tax income. One is based on earner's residence. So India will tax Indian income earners, US will tax American income earners. The other is the source of income. So if America follows the model of global earnings being taxed on residence model, so American companies' global earnings are subject to US taxation, subject to the whatever credits are available under double tax avoidance agreement. But whereas in case of non-resident companies, foreign companies, you do not have residence-based taxation. So how do you go about it? That is the dilemma. So that the easy to understand analogy is like if you are fishing in a pond with a very long fishing rod, and the owner of the pond wants to tax you for catching fish from the pond, and you say, I have not even gone near the pond. My feet are not wet. So if you follow the model, say significant economic presence, if you are close to the pond, you have presence in pond, your feet are wet, you are sitting by the side of the pond. But whereas if the digital companies sitting far away from India are actually earning from Indian consumers, from Indian market. So the real, and the same applies to many other countries also. So the big tech companies, Google, etc., they are a resident of America, but they are earning from rest of many countries where big consumer markets are there. And the real issue is whether the governments of those countries whose consumers are giving the income, do they have any legitimate share of this income? That is the tussle all about. The France introduced 3% levy, and it is also arguing with the US and coming together for a consensus internationally. You see, the Organization of Economic and Development countries, OECD countries, which represents most of the developed countries, particularly European Union, they have been for more than 20-25 years have been working in a campaign against international tax dodgers. I mean, the entities, whether companies or individuals, who for through various mechanisms, they dodge taxes from one country by locating to a country low tax or zero tax company, tax havens, or work out arrangements where the market is somewhere else, the server is located somewhere else, billing address is somewhere else, corporate headquarters is somewhere else. So this is called base erosion and profit shifting, BEPS initiative of OECD, under which this action plan has been mentioned, which Mr. Garg says. And this is a tussle between two systems of income taxation. One is the US model of residence-based taxation, residence of an earner, and the OECD, what is advocating source of income-based money. So this tussle will end ultimately with this the threats of counteraction, tariffs being imposed by one country through some international coming together. And we hope that 2021 should see coming together, international community coming to a consensus on this, so that the big tech companies which are evading taxes from where the markets they are earning, they also get a fair share of that.
Okay. Dr. Pandey, since you mentioned the global agreement on DST through the OECD, the question that arises is that despite Democratic President Joe Biden's renewed commitments to pursue this agreement on DST through the OECD, this comes as a surprise, the USTR's proposal for retaliatory action against India.
This is part of the process. The international agreements, you see the history of various international agreements, how they come about. There is a part of some action, counteraction. It is how WTO mechanism has evolved and has been subject to various disputes and contentions. So this is one. For example, you are saying that it is discriminatory. We are saying we have not specified this is applicable only to US companies. It so happens we are saying anybody, any non-resident there, if you want to do business in India, you have a permanent presence, you have an office here, a permanent office, or you accept the concept of significant economic presence, which is then all the double tax avoidance agreements will take cognizance of that concept, give proper tax credits. So it will be easy on the companies also, and the recipient, the consumer market countries will also get fair share of the income being earned by big tech companies.
Okay, sir. So since the USTR has already made the proposal on retaliatory tariffs against India, what happens next? What could be the next step then?
The next step is negotiations only. You see, on various fronts, the US-India relations have, and multiple levels through multiple channels. There are certain friction points. There are certain plus points. There are points where we convert. There are points where we divert. And this is nothing new. It is not something that has emerged in last just 3 months or three years. It has all along been that. So through this process only we will work together. And as I said, it is not really US versus India. We are hoping, we are working together to see that it is not just India, but a whole block of developing countries whose markets are being tapped by big tech, that they come together and we discuss with them. Okay, so it is not really a bilateral, but multilateral issue.
But could there be ramification is something that I'll come to you. But in the meanwhile, Mr. Garg, let me also understand from you. The USTR has expressed a concern that such a tax, the DST, is inconsistent with the international tax norms. So what are the international norms on digital tax at the moment?
This is more an arm twisting kind of thing from USA. Already the OECD is working. Though we are not a member of OECD, we are just an observer there. But they are working it on. But it was the USA, first of all, who backed out from this negotiation. Everybody was negotiating. And it is a general principle of taxation, as Mr. Pandey also pointed out, that those the consumer, the country, they have the genuine right to tax those income which is earned there. These tech companies are earning a lot from these developing countries and paying no tax there. But the problem lies where the problem lies, because we have the DTA system, double tax avoidance agreement, and equalization levy. It's a unilateral step, because in DTA you don't get the credit of taxes paid under the equalization levy, because it is not under the Income Tax Act. It is through the Finance Act. Secondly, no DTA has ever the concept of equalization levy. So it is more a unilateral action kind of thing. And why this action has been imposed? Because the countries are not sitting together. One more point is that if you want to negotiate each and every country, it will take 30-40 years to come on that same table. That is why a concept of MLI was introduced, multilateral instrument. But these Western countries, they are least interested to negotiate on these things, because they know they are on the plus point, they are on the plus side. And it's a political kind of thing more, rather than to be on the economic side or to think the genuine hardship of our government, developing government, which are facing, are not getting the tax from these tech companies.
Absolutely. Because this is happening unilaterally. That's why I think it's giving rise to this tussle, and there is need for a multilateral, easy system worldwide. So we'll talk about that. But at the moment, Dr. Pandey, so what is India's stand on the issue? Now that the USTR proposal is there in place on retaliatory action, what could India look at?
India has already at multiple occasions voiced its support to the broad approach of OECD, the MLI framework, where the source of income linked taxations, international taxation system for international companies, MNCs, is acceptable. It so happens that the home of capitalism, where most of the big companies have, they are resident of US. So that is why it looks like a US versus the rest of the world scenario. Although there are two types of tax dodging that happens there. One is where it is located in a tax haven also. And the other is where it is not located, these companies are located in US, which is not a tax haven. It is a tax and spend advanced developing country. But the source of income is from a developing country, and the tax is being paid to the US government. And the same applies to some other digital services provider. In our case, our stakes are very high. In a recent report, NASSCOM has assessed that our digital economy is about $300 billion. And by 2025, the way the architecture we have created, Aadhaar-enabled, mobile-enabled financial services and entertainment, communication, in every sphere. So it may become a $1 trillion digital economy. So stakes are very high, and the tussle with the big tech is not just on the taxation issue. There are many other issues on which the state is coming to tussle with the big tech in terms of a data localization policy, data privacy, data sovereignty. So all these are points of leverage in the multiple negotiations, whether it is a taxation of the data use and earning from data, and asserting sovereignty over data. As you saw, recent spat with the Facebook and Australia, what happened. So in order to obviate this thing, it is a moment of turbulence. I expect that more and more, you mentioned a host of countries they have been named in the USTR report. So India is not alone. So we should be working with OECD. Earlier, G20 had broadly endorsed this approach. So we will be working. It is confrontation is not in our interest, because there are so many ramifications. But this is a modest step. I mean, since 2016, when this equalization levy was introduced, I saw a recent report of last year which says about 4,000 crore since 2016 have been collected. So it is not that the collection is very, very large. So if you are matching any retaliatory action to compensate for that way, the amount is not very large. But the principle is more important. Once the principle is accepted, it will help us in many other spheres of international taxation and in checking tax evasion, flight of capital and flight of income, evading tax across national borders.
Tina, I want to add something to Mr. Pandey.
Sure.
What he said about the 4,000 crore of tax, but it was a very limited portion, because earlier we brought the tax on the advertisement portion. So the amount was very less, around 700-800 crore per year. But now, as you suggested in the opening report, that 55 million tax can be there. It is around 40,000 crore. Number two, we have clearly, and at every form, international form, India has clarified its stand that we are a sovereign nation. We have every right to tax the income which is earned from India. If you are not going to change the system of taxation, you are not going to change the DTA system, it's not our fault. Earlier, we brought the concept of significant economic presence as in suo motu in our act, but it was not accepted by every country. It was not accepted internationally. Then what we have to do? And then so many countries now bringing this unilateral tax. France, as you said earlier, Italy, Turkey, India. But it's a kind of the sovereign thing. How we can leave such a portion of the tax to be collected? And you know, India is the biggest consumer market for these companies. We have 130 billion people here. So it's our right. And I think it's a political kind of thing, and it will be diplomatically handled.
Absolutely. And that is where consensus has to be built. There has to be some agreement on both sides. And that is where India has in the past also maintained that it has been done to have a level playing field. A proposal has been made by India in the past that there will be no DST if the goods and services are sold via Indian arm of the e-commerce players. So, Mr. Garg, why is this not being accepted?
Every country is proposing this. And I think in the time to come, negotiation will happen and every country will reach a consensus, because now every country is being attached to it and they are seeking a large chunk of taxes to be collected from there. And second problem is about, as Mr. Pandey also suggested, about the TT shopping kind of thing, where you are having a base in some tax haven country and you are not paying tax to any country. Now it's a case of not double taxation, it's a case of double non-taxation then. Then something has to be developed international level with consensus, if it happens consensus. And why we have taken this unilateral step? Earlier we didn't. But after seeing that nobody is interested, nobody is taking interest in that, nobody is interested in consensus, that's why the Indian government has taken that step. And I think it's our right, and a consensus may be reached.
Okay, so since both of you are talking about consensus, Dr. Pandey, of course, there's no doubt there is need for a friendly and uniform system globally. But how can this international consensus be built on having a multilateral solution to this huge challenge for a digital economy?
First, let me slightly respond to the previous question you posed as to why it is not being done, if I may add. That is a decision of these big tech companies. That is not for the US government to do. If they want, they can always create a wholly owned subsidiary in India, but that is not their model. We welcome foreign direct investment in our country. There are in so many sectors, foreign companies are working here. They are manufacturing rail coaches, metro coaches, mobile phones, etc., etc. So they are in financial services also. So they are wholly owned subsidiaries. They are Indian companies subject to normal Indian taxation. They are paying taxes as per income tax, as per GST. So if they are not doing, that is the business decision of it doesn't fit in their business model. It is creating companies in each country. They may seeing what is the pros and cons of the car. So coming to the international consensus, I hope, because the kind of a dialogue we have seen in the transition last 1 year specifically, I am sanguine that 2021 should see some sort of a compromise being reached on it. Because far too many countries, a coalition of developing and developed countries are fighting for it. So I'm pretty sanguine that something will happen soon.
Okay, so consensus is likely to be reached very soon. And in fact, earlier as well, a deadline for mid-2021 was set before the pandemic hit. So let's be hopeful that a uniform, easy multilateral solution is in place very, very soon. One last comment from you, Mr. Garg, because there is obviously a need for a consistent global tax system which will facilitate cross-border trade and smooth trade across countries. What should be its structure like? Of course, consensus is something that's the most important bit, but the structure for it to function smoothly, what should it be like?
A lot of things are already being done in the process. As you said, that May 21 was the period, was the time to be given before this pandemic that we will reach a consensus. And multilateral instrument is kind of thing. MLI, signing the MLI. More and more countries are coming on the same table, signing the MLI. This is the only solution. A genuine tax pie has to be right of the country to take that pie.
Absolutely. So since there are differing scopes, thresholds for DSTs in each and every country, the compliance burden of the e-commerce platforms is also huge. And that is where both our panelists are suggesting that there is need for a friendly, uniform system globally. An international consensus is being built upon. That's the OECD agreement on multilateral solution. And we are all hopeful that this may come across very, very soon. So with that, I'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to both my guests once again for joining us on the program today and putting things into perspective for us and our viewers. Pleasure having you on the show. So that's it from us on The Big Picture today. Thank you very much for your time.